We really had written them off as just a nothing team, and they really seem to be coming into themselves.
Hola y bienvenidos a All Four Quarters, su fuente de información integral sobre noticias, análisis y reacciones exageradas a todo de la reacción con la NFL. Yes, I was in Spain this week. So hey, we've got Connor
Hola,
here and
very
we got
well.
Sean.
Hola.
How are we getting on? How's all down in Cork?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it's not Madrid, but it's not too
Mm.
bad. We finally, I think, just about finished the house. Various things that are being done to the living room and the kitchen, so life can get back to normal. Also got to watch the craziest game of international football Ireland has seen in a very long time, and we actually won a game that we
Mm.
weren't supposed to win, which does not happen to Ireland very often
Oh,
at
we won
all.
two
And
games we
everyone's
weren't
getting really
supposed to
hyped up
win.
watching Troy Parrott score a hat-trick was a marvelous thing to see. We haven't had experiences like that in Irish football for a long time, so it was nice to see.
Yeah, so nothing too wild from my side. We had a couple of us over in Madrid for the international series. It was good fun. Good nice accommodation. We did get absolutely poured on rain wise, but was good fun. The fan zone was enjoyable and wasn't cripplingly expensive for a change, which was cool. They had F1 cars and all that kind of stuff. A lot of F1 stuff over there in Madrid, but I suppose I think they're getting a race next season, or maybe it's the year after, but they're basically moving one of the races there, so it seems to be a big hype there around it. And the game was good. The NFL completely fucked the organizational side though. I believe they hired in people who were cheaper to do like the doors and all that kind of stuff because they only opened a fraction of the doors that are normally open for a football game, resulting in two of us queuing for an hour and a half to get into the game and missing a chunk of the
Ouch.
first quarter. Not fun. Whereas the other lads straight on in, and that was after like we were told you can't go in this entrance, and then after the hour and a half queue in the other entrance said, oh, you could go in any entrance. We're like, what? They fucking talk to each other, figure it out. But yeah, it was a queue full of like really confused Spaniards who are like, why are they doing it this way? This doesn't work. And a load of very loud, very angry Americans who had flown over and were unimpressed. But no, it was
That's interesting. Because I heard there weren't many Spanish fans there. It was one of the online critiques that it was mostly Americans who traveled over, and the NFL is worried they didn't have much of a hometown audience there.
Mm. Well, there was, but I will say that most of the Spanish that I was chatting to, the queue and stuff, they were there with, they'd have like an American friend who's flown over and has probably got the tickets for them or
Ah,
whatever. But yeah, no, it was good crack now, good fun in the thing. Kind of a full-on halftime show with Daddy Yankee, who I haven't heard in years, and yeah, no, it was good crack now. We'll talk about it a little bit maybe in the dump off later, but no, it was a close game, went to overtime and all that kind of stuff. It was good fun, one of the better ones we've seen in person. I suppose we'll fly in and have a look at some of the news. We'll start with crime and punishment. What are they doing? Probably felonies. Is spitting a felony? Why is there so much spitting this year? Cincinnati wide receiver Jamar Chase has been suspended for one game for spitting at Pittsburgh defensive back Jalen Ramsey after there was video confirmation of what happened. Chase did appeal the sentence, but his appeal has been denied, so he's missing a game. He also misses out on $500,000 is his game check. Like I know he's well paid, but that's a lot of money for a spit. Ramsey threw a punch in retaliation, so he was ejected for that. Obviously, Ramsey is kind of known for getting into scraps, AJ Green, Golden Tate, and so on. Not all that surprising. Very silly from Jamar Chase to spit on him, although, as you said, Ramsey he has form in these types of things. He's probably yapping away or whatever. I do gotta say, I kind of like Mike Tomlin's response to it, though, when he was asked about Ramsey punching him afterwards and whether he stood by that kind of actions. And he said, if a man spits on you, like that's how you react. Like I would do no different. And I do kind of get it. It's like, look, I'm not going to tell him off for retaliating, even though I'm sure the NFL wanted him to. But yeah, this is our second, third spitting incident this year.
yeah. I mean, I imagine playing against Jalen Ramsey must be an absolute nightmare. Not just because he's a pretty decent defensive back, but he seems to have an entire part of his game plan is to try and rile up his opposing wide receiver, and often that escalates into actual physical violence. Obviously, the incidents with Green and Tate are most highly mentioned, but he did have a kind of a spat with Tyreek Hill. I remember once he also apparently started a fight in a joint practice session when the Rams were having a joint session with another team. So this seems to be his entire thing is to try and rile you up. And I mean, Jamar Chase, I mean, he's an idiot for overreacting or doing what he did and allowing it to get to him. And obviously, I mean, it must be really frustrating to be an actually good Cincinnati Bengal and having to deal with this garbage dumpster fire of a season. But he should know that this is Ramsey's thing. He tries to get you off your game, and he overreacted and he got suspended for it. And now, basically, I mean, the Bengals season's probably already over, but certainly they would have needed to beat the Pats to stay alive for Joe Burrow's return or
Mm.
whatever, and that's kind of gone out the window now because without Chase, they're much more limited as a thing. So, I mean, yeah. I think people should there should be a thing there should be on your like game sheet going into a game when you're playing Jalen Ramsey is don't overreact. That's exactly what he wants
Mm.
because the guy this seems to be his thing that he does and it seems to work more often than it doesn't.
Yeah, so like I said, it's just unusual that we have so much spitting in in one season so far. It's just a bit mad. Controversy corner. The New York Jets are benching Justin Fields again, and putting out
Is that a
Tyrod Taylor.
controversy?
I don't know. What I find controversial is that the head coach came out and said, we can't be having him running that much. That's not fair to him. You're like, well, you're calling the fucking plays, bud. Like I just yeah, and wide receiver Keon Coleman was deactivated by head coach Mike McDermott after being late to a meeting. We had a few of these. There was a spate of players being benched to start games this week because we had was it Jalen Carter supposedly fell asleep in and missed a team meeting because he fell asleep in the team facility somewhere. And equally, we had was it two wide receivers for Dallas that were sat on the first series as well on the Monday night game. It's just an unusual amount of people actually disciplining players. It's a bit weird.
Yeah. The Keon Coleman thing is interesting because obviously the Bills are in a pretty bad place in terms of their wide receivers at the moment, and it's a very big step to be like, okay, probably they're one of if not their best wide receiver to sit, not just deactivate him for a series or make him sit for a
Yeah.
quarter. He just he scratched him for the entire game for being. I think it was the second time he was late, or the second time he had some
Mm.
sort of disciplinary action this season, and third time overall with the team. So obviously he's sick of it and hopes that this is going to be what gets it done. But it's a brave decision to in a situation where your team is playing a good team against a good opponent and you need to win, and you take one of your best players off to teach him a lesson.
Yeah. And we'll be
It
talking about it
worked,
later, but
but
it did
yeah,
work.
if
Like.
they'd lost, if they'd lost, I mean that would have been a real controversy.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had a chunk of injuries this week, so we'll talk through a few of them. So a couple of season enders. Tennessee wide receiver Calvin Ridley has broken his fibula, so he's gone for the season. Atlanta quarterback Michael Penix has injured his knee. He's placed on IR, but we just got confirmation there that he's going to need surgery on his ACL. So you're looking at probably a 9 month kind of process, which probably puts some question marks on the start of next
Yeah,
season, which is
yeah, yeah.
interesting given you would say probably underperformance this season and the pressures it's going to be on that coaching staff. And Denver's running back J.K. Dobbins has injured his foot and is likely gone for the season as well. We had a lot of kind of smaller injuries as well. So Philadelphia offensive tackle Lane Johnson has injured his foot. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks. Uh, Cam Taylor Britt, the cornerback for Cincinnati, has a Liz Frank injury, so will probably require surgery. Running back Josh Jacobs for Green Bay has injured his knee. He left in the second quarter, and we don't have confirmation yet. But if you buy into fantasy football being the stock market of NFL players, it sounds like everyone's rushing to go out and get the backup. Aaron Rodgers injured his left wrist in the Pittsburgh's game on Saturday. So he's so far they've confirmed that it's a small break in a bone or a small fracture, but he's not been ruled out for next week yet. So keep an eye on that. Sam Laporta, the tight end for Detroit, has been placed on injured reserve, so that's a minimum of 4 weeks with a back injury. Dylan Gabriel, the Cleveland quarterback, well, he's technically their number one now, but was their number three, and so on. He got concussed. Shador Sanders came in. We'll talk about that in a bit, but Yeah, so it looks like Shadur will be starting this week coming, and Houston have confirmed that Stroud is still in the concussion protocol, so we get another round of Davis Mills this Thursday football. So
Hooray.
a lot going on there. Yeah, the Atlanta one is obviously, like we said, underperforming. Has moments, but like it isn't really coming together on that offense like you'd like to with all the skill position players. 9 months would mean what, like at least at the tail end of training camp, or sorry, missed training camp, the early to mid section of
Yep.
preseason.
Preseason. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So like there's no way they can't not get a backup quarterback
Well,
if that's the
this is such a,
situation.
yeah, it's such an Atlanta thing to do. Obviously, they had the the controversy with the quarterback where they last season where they signed Kirk Cousins to a massive deal and then instantly drafted someone, creating they didn't want to have this problem. They want to be like, as long as we'll at least have one healthy QB going forward. But if Kirk Cousins, how he's played this season, and to look like, I think he's pretty washed, and they overpaid him pretty significantly. And now Penix, who was playing all right, but the team wasn't winning any games, he's gone for 9 months. And as you say, not only does it kind of kill the momentum of this season, which is probably eking towards a dead season now, but it really hampers their ability to prepare for next season. And as you say, who knows if who head coaches or whoever is going to make it to, start of the 2026 season. So, yeah, really, really bad situation for the Falcons to be in, and it's just typical Falcons that the one position they thought they were insured against injury turns out to be the one disaster zone that they're in. Also, I mean, worth taking a note of the Cleveland QB situation. Obviously, the Shador Sanders fans are, and I'm sure you'll talk about the dump off, they're a lot quieter this week after having him throw 4 for 16 for
With
one
an
of the worst.
interception, and oh, it's awful.
It was. I saw a stat which is like the five worst quarterback performances this year. Four of them are Justin Fields, and in the middle of that Justin Fields sandwich is Sanders' display.
Hmm.
So
They were getting
yeah, he's
pretty yappy online though. They were saying, "Oh, they're setting them up to fail. They're not giving them the reps." And a bunch of current and ex NFL like backup quarterbacks were like, "What reps? Like if you're the second or third string player, you get maybe 60 full speed reps in a practice week, and that can be like blitz pickups or it could be run plays. So like maybe 30 passing plays at full speed in practice. Like they're not giving them to the third string quarterback. Like it's
yeah.
crazy, crazy stuff. The conspiracy theory circling, but yeah, no, it's rough going for Cleveland. It's rough going. I might need to reassess my pick for this week if he is indeed starting. And just a small note, we're coming up to American Thanksgiving and whatnot, but we've got fork time has arrived. So teams from this point onwards are going to start to be eliminated. I thought I'd mention it in the extra bits of news, Sean, just because it's a very interesting scenario. So Tennessee, obviously, streaming towards that first overall pick and so on. By the narrowest of margins, they don't have an elimination scenario in week 12. So they can't be eliminated now, even though they're doing so poorly. But they're guaranteed to have one next week. Regardless of what happens this week, they can be eliminated next week. So yeah, that's where we are essentially in the season. Time to start sharpening those knives. There's a few
Well,
that could.
that's the thing. I mean, it starts now, but it's like every week some team is going to be eliminated from this point forward. So
Mm,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's it. Start to really
No
whittle
more
it
messing.
down. No more. That's what they say. This is the business end of the season. That's why, Chiefs haven't started yet. We're starting clean slate. 0-0, you know. Yeah, yeah. Let's treat it that way. Yeah, fun time. So I suppose we'll go and have a little look at some of the games from last week. Okay, so to start us off, Sean, Seattle went and took on the LA Rams, two proper contenders for the NFC side this year. 19 to 21, so maybe a little bit lower scoring than we thought, but tell us all about this one.
Yeah, it wasn't the game that we were expecting. Obviously, coming into this game, we had the Rams were just lights out offensively. Stafford was having one of his renaissance years, and it really looked like that they were clicking on the offense. And then Seattle, they still had a strong defense, but they still were doing an awful lot of things offensively. I mean, they just absolutely blitzed the Cardinals the week before, and Darnold was in a good place. So you thought this would probably be a shootout, two really good teams in good form. a really enjoyable game. It was a very messy, very defensive game that ended up being edged by the Rams thanks to the fact that their defense got four interceptions of Sam Darnold, who really went back a bit to Jets era Sam
Mm,
Darnold at moments. And even then, they didn't. They almost didn't win it. The Seattle managed to charge back at the end, and Jason Myers, he had to hit a 61-yard field goal, which would have matched his career best to steal the win for Seattle, but he missed, and Rams hold on for the win, which is a very big win in terms of both the NFC West and NFC seeding overall. They're basically now in the prime position for that number one seed in the NFC. So, in general, both offenses, there was very much an underperformance. The Rams were 2-11 on third down. The Seahawks were 7 of 16 on third down. I mean, the passing stats here are pretty gruesome. Stafford was 15 of 28 for only 130 yards, and albeit two touchdowns for a guy who was, you know, in the 250 to 300 mark with three or four touchdowns back weeks. It's a very big fall down. And Darnold was 29 of 44 for 279, and those four interceptions, which were really hurt them. There's some players did play somewhat well. Karen Williams had 91 yards and a touchdown. Puka Nakua got 93 yards all-purpose, although he did fumble the ball at one crucial moment. On the Seattle side, Kenneth Walker had over 100 yards all-purpose, and Jackson Smith and Jigba had his usual 105, and he is miles ahead. I was looking at the WR stats. He's like a good 200 yards ahead now of the next best wide receiver in the NFL. So he's lights out and is
yeah.
heading for possibly the first ever 2,000-yard wide receiver season. So offenses occasion it was very much the Seahawks would get the ball, held the ball for most of the time of possession. They had like almost 38 minutes time of possession, but then they would make some stupid mistake like an interception and give the ball back over to the Rams, and the Rams would huff about for a while. I would occasionally score a touchdown or something. And the Seahawks, if they didn't give an interception, would tend to have to give up for the field goal. They couldn't really seem to finish it. So it was just a very messy game all around from two teams who we expected a lot more from. So the defenses really were the ones who came out to shine here. Cameron Kitchens had two interceptions against Seattle for the second season running, which is quite a great position to be in. And the Rams obviously managed to get the win despite the fact not playing that well and only having 22 minutes of possession. So it's very hard to take anything away from this. Obviously, two teams who know each other very well. But just the exact opposite game script to what we expected. And both of these offenses come out of this game would be feeling like maybe they can be solved. Maybe if a team does study them as well as their divisional rivals do, they will find ways to stifle them. And obviously, Darnold making those mistakes is the kind of thing you don't want to see from a guy who does have a history of having bad games and bad seasons, as much as he's had a good season and a half now since he got liberated from New York and went to places that respected him. So there's still good play. Both teams probably going to end up the playoff. At least one of them's going to win this division, I would say, and get a high seed. But after this game, I'm like, do these teams now have a blueprint for other teams to go, this is how you stop these offenses? And that's what I would be worried about if I was a Rams or a
Mm.
Seahawks fan, is you come out of this game being like, man, these offenses can be stopped. And then it really does turn out to how good these defenses are. And admittedly, they're both quite good, but I've come away from this being like, maybe these teams aren't actually the best teams in the NFC, and maybe something like the Eagles or even the Lions on their day are maybe a little bit better, but a little bit more work to do than we thought from these two teams than there were coming in.
Yeah, like that's the thing. You look at this and you kind of say, close game. Two contenders know each other well, so they can scheme each other quite well. Both have good defenses, so maybe the personnel required to do this isn't quite as universal. Maybe it'll be harder to do. But you also look at that and you say you got four interceptions and you win by 2 points. That's really not the kind of output that we've been expecting out of this Rams offense at all. Like it's kind of like I said, like Matt Stafford was what, like 130 yards in this game. I think he was averaging like 300. I was talking him up in the MVP talk 2 weeks ago. But yeah, look, it was certainly an interesting one. They just kind of like the top and tail nature of it as well. The fact that like everything was first and last quarter for them. Like they didn't do anything in the intervening period. They were just getting stopped everywhere. And obviously there was the fumble and so on. But it's just it interests me because I think I always think these divisional games, particularly in the NFC West, are very difficult to take a huge amount from, because I think they know each other well, but also these guys both know that both these teams are careening towards the playoffs and that there's a strong chance they might see each other there, and they don't want to put too much out on film on it. But like, this was underperformance, not holding your cards too close to the chest, I think. And for both teams, I think they'll both kind of think they missed a bit of a shot here, particularly Seattle. I think they're going to be quite concerned. But I like what both of them are doing coaching wise at the moment, and I like Seattle to be able to figure out what was causing Darnold those problems. What, like, was it to do with how they were positioning the defensive tackles? Was it kind of clogging up lanes for him or whatever, and be able to figure out a route around it? Because I think it's just that they didn't have the counter punch, and the Rams have always been good for, if they find a thing that works, they will spam it until it stops working. And I just don't think Seattle had the response to fixing it. But no, like, both teams are good. I think both teams are better than this result and this game would suggest. But yeah, it wasn't either was their strongest performances. Speaking of, oh, good God, why did I end up with this one? Kansas City at Denver. Andy Reid off the bye. Not going to be able to beat him, are you? No, 19-22. Kansas City dropped to 5-5 after a 35-yard walk-off field goal from Will Lutz. This was a very close game throughout. The Chiefs were ahead by three, or sorry, they were trailing by three in the fourth quarter. Then they got up to being ahead by three, and then allowed two more field goals to come in, and just weren't able to close it out. Bo Nix looked fine in this one. Like, he had good yardage, but wasn't converting into touchdowns. 24-37, 295 yards, but no touchdowns. Again, this kind of late game composure thing comes in, because it was tied, or they were trailing for the majority of the time of possession here, but they didn't freeze in the final quarter. They, 8 play, 60-yard field goal to go three ahead. Then they fall to three behind. It should have been four behind, but they blocked the extra point. Then they do make a mistake there. 3 play, have to punt after only getting 3 yards. But as soon as the possession comes back in, 6 play field goal drive, taking 2.5 minutes off the clock. And they get the ball back with 3 minutes to go, with it being a tie game, and they go 10 plays, 58 yards, and kick the field goal for the win. And break a lot of hearts, Sean. Break a lot of hearts. Big 32-yard pass to Troy Franklin to try and keep that alive. It was a big defensive game for Jaquan McMillan. 5 tackles, 2 for a loss, 2 sacks, and an interception. Mahomes on the other side, he was fine, but like, not massively spectacular in this. 29 of 45, 276 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Kelsey kind of looked a little bit more like old Kelsey again. 9 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown, so he had a good game in it. But Denver just kind of found ways to win here. They're now 9-2, so they've kind of, barring a massive resurgence from the Chargers, they look to have locked up the AFC West here. The Chiefs are out of the division hunt anyway, but the big question now is, looking at the back end of their schedule, can they sneak into a wild card, or are they a little bit too far gone at this point? They do have a couple of tough games coming up, starting this week with Indianapolis coming off the bye, which is not an easy feat by any stretch of the imagination. The big criticism they saw coming from the Kansas City side on this one was play calling, and particularly fourth quarter play calling. That once the guys kind of had an idea of what they were doing, they did get great success, which is an odd thing to say, saying they had 2 touchdowns in the second half. But you look at their last 2 sets of plays, and they kind of got quite inside themselves. So they were up by 3, and they get the ball back. I understand you don't have your main running back in at the moment, and I think that's a broader criticism to give them anyway, because they didn't make moves at the deadline that could have helped that out. It didn't have to be Brees Hall, but just to bring in another body at that point. But what that means is you end up with really, really terrible play calling, just because they don't like. So this offense is very old fashioned. It and doesn't. Yeah, okay, old fashioned is the wrong term. This offense is about 12 years old and hasn't really moved with the times a huge amount, out of fear of injuring Pat Mahomes. They run a huge amount out of shotgun. They run out of shotgun a lot rather than under center. And the problem that causes is they can people in the line of scrimmage can see you're starting to run from behind the line, so it's easier for them to get tackles for a loss. So it's very difficult to run a highly effective, particularly a power running scheme behind this. And because of that, you look at that drive there. So say that they're up by three. There is 8 minutes left. If you can score it all here, you can guarantee that you're going to get a possession back and a chance to win it with a field goal. They get it to 3rd and 2 on their own 20-yard line. And what's your play call there? 3rd and 2. You presumably run it for 2 yards because you expect you should be able to run it for 2 yards. But instead, they're out of shotgun, and you end up with Mahomes trying to pass the ball to their fourth string running back, Brashad Smith. Like, that is not that is not a sustainable way to run an offense, because everyone knows that you're not going to be running it with your third or fourth string running back in there, and they also know that like you're not going deep with that. And for your target to be Rashad Smith confuses the hell out of me. But then the exact same thing happens again afterwards. They didn't call a run play, I think, in the last 10 minutes of this game in 3 possessions or 2.5 possessions. Like, it was infuriating to watch, because it's something that needs to be brought in if you want a bit of diversity in this. And they weren't changing their play calls. You could see the Broncos defenders on a number of plays shouting out what the motions were. Like, it just wasn't innovative in a way that we're used to seeing from this offense, and they're going to need to do better if they want to make the playoffs, and particularly if they want to do anything in the playoffs. But I'm not to ruin the previews, but I'm not sure we're going to beat Indy next week, and I think at 5-6, it's a real uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean it's an odd one because we thought that the Chiefs had solved their offensive problems, right? Like the first few weeks went kind of, they were a bit all over the place. They couldn't really get going in the passing game, and then they had that 3 or 4 week streak where it looked like the
Yeah.
dynasty was back and everything was motoring. But here, it just seems to have faded away again. And it's interesting to see that. I'm sure Kansas City have a lot of fair weather and kind of bandwagon fans, but the knives were on really out online,
Oh,
even
these
for Andy Reid
idiots.
being
Yeah.
like, "What has Andy Reid ever done for us?" And I'm like, "He won like 3 Super Bowls, dude. You
Yeah.
might want to calm down a bit." I have faith that the Chiefs will figure things out. Like we've seen a number of seasons now. It hasn't really always. It's rare that it's gotten this late in the season they haven't solved their offensive problems. We have had seasons where the Chiefs have suddenly teams have either found out some way to clamp them down. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago where that shell defense had really
Mm.
stifled Mahomes for a while.
Too
But
high
then
shell. Yeah.
they found a way through it and they became their own old selves again. So I'm kind of expecting that when it gets to week 15, week 16, we'll see something like the old Chiefs. The problem, as you say, is that are they still going to be alive there, or to what extent are they going to be alive? Because certainly they're going to have to go on the road, and they'll have to go into the wild card. They'll have to win multiple games on the road if they want to make the Super Bowl this year. So even if they are, if they do find their groove, it's still going to be quite a difficult task to get back to the Super
Mm.
Bowl. So it's fascinating to watch, and it will be very interesting to see if it gets close to the end. I mean, how much they actually are able to pull out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great new day for everybody who isn't a Kansas City Chiefs fan. That the dynasty might be on its last legs, or at least this version of it. Maybe they just need to refresh. Maybe it's the kind of thing they need to start moving away from Kelsey. I know he's still productive, but he's not
No,
nearly as
but it
productive
is
as he
it
was
is
a couple of
time
years
for,
ago.
yeah. Like they
And
in theory they had Gray and people like that in, but they need to get some more focal points in away from that. And I do think Andy's a big man for keeping his guys around, but I do think you need some fresh blood in that offensive room at this point. Like I would very much have my eyes on if McDaniels was fired, if he was interested in an offensive coordinator position. I'd love to see what he would do with this kind of collection of wide receivers and Pat Mahomes and so on. But yeah,
mm,
the future is not great because if you look at it, we've got Colts, Cowboys could be difficult. The two key ones are we've got versus Texans versus Chargers. So those guys are sitting just ahead of you in the rankings currently. So you kind of need to win both of those to get the tiebreakers of them, because your problem is the Jags have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs already. So you need to be moving quite a bit up these rankings. And like there's three very winnable games on the schedule for certain. And then there's what, four that could be tough, and it's you need to win. You can probably only drop two more games, I think, It's a big
Fun
ask.
times, fun
Big ask.
times.
Bizarrely, you know what? If the if the if the Broncos have the division locked up, that might help the Chiefs quite a bit because they play them on week 17, I think. So
Right, yeah, yeah.
who knows? But yeah, look, we'll see. We'll see. For Denver, look, good performance. I still don't think this is a particularly great team. I
Yeah, I don't think they've shown us yet that they are
no.
an elite team. No.
No, and I think if you play this game 10 times, I think the Chiefs win it 7 of the 10 times. But it was just, yeah, it was just not great at all. And Denver can now kind of focus in on what they're going to do once they get to the bigger games, realistically, because all they need is maybe 2 more wins, 3 more wins to lock up, and then I suppose it's just a question of seeding. Because if Indianapolis go on a slide or something, it could be interesting. But yeah, next game up is Carolina at Atlanta. Sean, 30-27. Bryce Young's coming out party.
Yeah, the Panthers, man, this has been one hell of a season for the Panthers. I mean, we really had written them off as just a nothing team, and they really seem to be coming into themselves. And part of it was for a large part of the season up to date, it's been okay. They've got Dowdle as on to do the running game stuff, and their defense is quite good. They don't really have a passing game. Bryce Young really hasn't stepped up. And then finally, here we are, week 11, and Bryce Young just went off on one. I mean, 31 of 45 for 448 yards and 3 touchdowns. So those are career numbers all around to lead Carolina to an overtime win through a kind of 28-yard Fitzgerald field goal to beat the Falcons, to go to I think 6-5 now. They're half a game behind Tampa Bay. They're actually in a position to maybe win their division. It's a really weird thing to see. They still don't really know why. And the Falcons are dead and buried. Underperform their talent level, and they're 3-7 and a bit of a mess. This game was, yeah, it's fascinating to watch. I mean, it's another one of those games the Falcons really should have won, right? They had their skill players were doing things. Bijan was having a day. He had 143 all-purpose in the end and 2 touchdowns. London got over the century as well. Penix, before he got injured, was quite solid, 13 of 16 for 175. So it was all coming together, and it felt like this was good. The good Atlanta had turned up after 3 or 4 weeks off, and you felt it was going there. But the problem was on the defense. The problem was their defense, which is usually can be relied on to be solid, if not spectacular, got incredibly destroyed, especially on the secondary. They had some injuries on the secondary and had to use a couple of backups. And yeah, all credit to Bryce Young and all credit to the Carolina offensive coordinator and his team. They really exploited that weakness, and they punished the shit out of the fact that the Falcons couldn't stop the passing game, to keep the Panthers in the game, to get them back in the fourth quarter, and ultimately to win the game in overtime. And of course, the Falcons helped them. They had a fumble on a kickoff to give them good possession in one space. So it's hard to. I like part of me wants to focus on the Falcons and be like, God, what is wrong with this team? How are they so incapable of winning games when they have what should be a pretty good offense and what is a fairly decent defense, but they just cannot seem to actually put it together. But for all intents and purposes, their season's now over, right? They're 3-7. Without Penix, their season is screwed. Kirk Cousins came in here and looks incredibly old and washed. He was 6 of 14 for 48 yards. I don't think he's going to be the guy that saves their season. I mean, you talk about the thing, if they're chasing a wild card spot, which they would be now, they're about 3.5 games behind the Packers in that race, which would be where about the 7th seed is. They're not going to make that back with Kirk Cousins on their center. So the Falcons, I think we can kind of forget about them as an entity and be like, this is just a weird team that just doesn't seem to be interested in winning games. In terms of Carolina, we kind of have to take them seriously now, right? Like their offense really starting to find their groove. This was the Tet McMillan. Oh, he doesn't like being called Tet, so Tetaroa, McMillan, kind of another one of his
Oh,
breakout
has he
games.
changed? Because he came out and said, "Call me Ted" at the start of the season, and now he said
No,
no.
apparently he likes Tetaroa, or he likes T-Mac is the other one that he enjoys. Yeah, anyway, whatever he's called, he had a great game here, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dowdle, I mean, they finally learned to just give the man the ball 100 all-purpose yards. Xavier Leggett had a big game as well, 83 yards and a touchdown. So that offense really starting to find its groove. That's a lot of really good young pieces. And you're starting to think, man, this offense could actually be something spicy once these guys start to mature in a couple of years. And on the defensive side, the defense is quite tough. They've given really tough games to teams like the Packers and stuff, and the Cowboys. And here that they were able to kind of hold the not hold serve, that they struggled a little bit, but they were able to do just enough to kind of give the Panthers offense a shot. It's still kind of hard to think about this team like conceptually as a good team. To me, the Panthers are a joke shop, but they're 6-5, half a game behind Tampa Bay. There's no reason not to think that they can't win a couple of more games. They're a shout for the playoffs, and they might even win their division, which is just a really bizarre thing to be saying. So yeah, it's a good time to be a Panther. Falcons season's basically over, and I hope a lot of people get fired because this team should be a lot better than 3-7, but somehow they just cannot win games.
Yeah, as you say, like you just look at the individual performances and you're like, well, I guess it has to be coaching, right? Like, it has to be. It has to be decision making and things like that because the guys are performing individually. It's just not coming together. I find it so weird about the Panthers though, because it was literally what a week to 10 days ago that there were discussions amongst like NFL executives and quite high up about how well, maybe this is just who Bryce Young is. Like maybe he's just going to be he's not a difference maker and that's fine. And he's like the 17th best quarterback or the 20th best quarterback. And then, he doesn't like hearing that and throws for 448 yards and three touchdowns. Like it is crazy. And then to do that in a game like this where, yes, they saw that the passing was working and they leaned into the passing, but like the passing was working because the Falcons defense just said, we don't respect Bryce Young passing. We're going to shut down the run. Like the run, they ran it 25 times in this game and they averaged 2.7 yards a carry. Like the guys did effectively shut down the run. The longest run Carolina had in this game was 6 yards. Like they never got past 6 yards. But for some reason they still said, yeah, like we'll stop that and we'll just ignore the near 450 yards through the air that are coming at us. And yeah, again, look, a full wholehearted what the hell is the coaching staff doing at halftime when this is happening and you're not doing anything to stop it? It's just crazy to me. But yeah, look, it was very positive for the Panthers, as you say. Atlanta, like just oof, come on, clear house, get someone else in, get a get another quarterback in, let them have a competition next year. Like cut Kirk Cousins if unless he's got a spooky late November, early December in him now because he started later this season. Yeah, like they're dead. And the thing is, the matches they have coming up do sound like there's enough winnable in them. Like they've got two games against the Saints, they've got the Jets, they've got the Cardinals. Like there are matches that they could win there, but then you look back on the ones that they've lost, like they lost to the Dolphins before the Dolphins got good. Like baffling team. Beat the Bills, lose to the Dolphins. Like it's just
Yep.
all over the shop. And yeah, I just think they need a steadier hand at the helm if they want to be getting anywhere in this one. Up next, Tampa Bay at Buffalo. 32-44. Buffalo pull away at the end, so it kind of looks like it's a stronger win than it is, but this was close. 9 lead changes throughout the game. Josh Allen, 19 of 30 for 317 yards and 2 interceptions, but he has a 6 touchdown day to go with that. 3 passing, 3 on the ground. So a big one if you are a Allen fantasy football head. Cook has 114 and a touchdown all-purpose, and Shavers went for 90 and a touchdown on his big day. You mentioned there in the news about the benching, and kind of frankly, it kind of feels like it worked out pretty well for them in this. Like a lot of people performing. Shavers in particular was kind of a surprise lead receiver for them to have, but he caught 80% of his targets, had a touchdown, had 90 yards. James Cook even was doing a bit more in the receiving game and everything. They really mixed the ball around a good bit, and it was quite impressive. The thing that surprised me in this high scoring a game, and I suppose it's just more probably reflective of how explosive the plays that were coming out of the team were, is that like they didn't run that many plays. They ran 53 plays or 53 offensive snaps in this one, 23 runs and 30 passes, and they put up 44 points. Like that's a crazy efficiency stat to be pulling off the other end. And then on the other side, you look at Tampa Bay with 32, and you kind of go, oh, that's interesting because their passing game doesn't seem to be working quite as strongly, but their run game seemed to be on point this game. They went for nearly 40 runs in it. But yeah, like Baker, 16 of 28, 173 and a touchdown, but he also put up 39 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Like he was doing his best to try and do it, but there was just sloppy, which seems to be increasingly what we're saying about this Tampa Bay team. You know, there's an interception, there was a fumble. Tucker took over the run game and 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then another 35 and a touchdown receiving. It was grand, but then it just kind of started to get away from them, and they just didn't seem to have the extra gear because like this was just lead change, lead change, lead change, lead change, and then you get to 32-31 early in the fourth quarter, and you're going, oh, this is going to be a real nail biter, and then punt after 3 plays, fumble after 5 plays, whereas the guys are scoring touchdowns back at you, and you look up and there's a minute and a half left, and it's 44-32, and there's just nothing that they can get going in it. So it's disappointing. I do think I mentioned this previously. I do think some of this is to do with the problem that we had with this team compositionally from a Tampa Bay perspective. That they are quite old. They are kind of, I think, uh, cracks are starting to show with some of the veterans. They're still good, but they don't have quite the influx of youth that you want to see, albeit they do in a certain couple of spots like at wide receiver and so on. Uh, I find it hard to decide, Sean. Do I love either of these teams? I think Tampa Bay versus Carolina is going to be interesting for that division if this is the kind of pace that they're both playing at. And for Buffalo, like this is a fine performance, but it's against a defense that was underperforming really. If you look at like how some of these plays came about and how explosive everything was, like that's not that's not a sustainable approach. That's a reflection of the defense and how they were playing for Tampa Bay. Buffalo almost certainly going to have to go on the road. Probably might have to, yeah, like might have to go into New England or go into Mile High or wherever, or even down to Indianapolis. Like Buffalo at home is a slightly different prospect than Buffalo having to go on the road and play lights out for 3 weeks straight to get there, But both are contenders, both will be interesting to see. But fun, exciting game. Didn't necessarily make me think, oh yeah, these are the two to watch. This could be a rematch in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I mean I do think that there is something the way you talked about the Falcons and earlier, and we're like the players are performing, but the team is just not doing what it needs to do collectively, and that's a coaching thing. I do think we need to start talking a little bit about the Bills from a coaching perspective because
Yeah.
they're so good offensively, but in an individual way. Like Josh Allen is just he's just a force of nature when he has games like this, where he's just he can beat you through the air, on the ground. There's literally nothing you can do to stop this guy when he's in the mood to score a touchdown. And you've got a combo of you've got James Cook, who's the best running back the Bills have had by some distance in this Allen era, and it's like that is a 1-2 combo that should get you into a really strong position in most games because you can score 40 points if you have to most of the time. The problem with the Bills is that they do have to score 40 points a lot of the time because the defense, especially when they come up against elite teams, just does not show up. Like they do not have the ability, except for occasionally they played reasonably well against the Chiefs. But you think about Week 1 against the Ravens. You think about the performance against the Pats when which had a very big decision about or impact on how this division's going to go. This game here is that when they come up against a good offense, this defense is just not at the races and puts the Bills in a lot kind of shakier position than they otherwise should be. And that I think does come down to on a certain level that they have to get things right on the coaching end, especially defensively, to actually put out solid game plans to how to deal with it. Because it did not feel like the Bills did not feel like either of these defenses had any kind of plan to how to stop the other offense. It kind of felt like, well, they're just going to run over us, so we just got to hope our offense is better. And that's a fun thing to watch. But, the thing about shootouts is they're really fun to watch. But I constantly am like, why does nobody stop these teams? Like, why is nobody reacting to the thing that is happening to them in a defensive way? And it really kind of, okay, the fourth quarter was a little bit better by the Bills, but some of that was just the Bucs making mistakes, right? Like, Baker has a fumble scramble or whatever, or they're just not doing it where they should, and the Bills are able to escape from here. But I find it very hard to take either of these teams particularly seriously. The Bucks are comfortably the best team in their division by talent, but they are at the moment they're struggling to run away with the division as much as we thought, and now they do have, a sprightly, flawed but interesting Panthers team on their heels, which I think is a much bigger challenge than when the Bucks were just holding off the Falcons, which we thought that this season would come to. So the Bucks are in no way guaranteed to have won their division or anything like that. And for the Bills, as you say, they're possibly going to be a wild card team on the road. It's not really a very sustainable path to getting back to the Super Bowl. And it just kind of feels like it doesn't really matter how good Josh Allen is or how good James Cook is if the rest of the team and the coaching isn't enough do enough to give them at least a couple of comfortable games against big teams. I have to see the Bills shut down a good offense in a clever, systematic way before I can start to think about them as a Super Bowl contender, because they're a fun team to watch, but they are not going to win anything playing like this.
Yeah, and like when you look at their forward schedule, you're going like there's a lot of tough defenses on there, and if their defense is going to give up points, then like the Texans could actually be difficult for them. Steelers, depending on what's happening at quarterback, but like they've got in terms of like playoff contention level people or teams that could cause them issues. They're at Texans, at Steelers, at Patriots, at Browns, just because it's a division game and that defense likes to beat up in division, and they're versus Eagles. Now look, we can ignore the Bengals and Jets games, but those are five incredibly tough defensive games for them to have to go out and play. And like if they want to challenge New England, they definitely got to beat the Patriots. They can't lose the series to them. But like, they probably have to win three of those four games, three of those five games to at least even have a chance at tying with the Patriots. That's a big ask. And I'm not sure in its current structure they're really in position to do that. Finally, Sean, battle of two big teams who put up small scores. Detroit at Philadelphia, 9-16.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of a weird week because all of the big games either had the Tampa Bay Buffalo where the offenses were both cooking but the defenses were just terrible, or you had games like the Seattle Rams game or to a certain extent Chiefs Broncos where the offenses just were not really doing anything and the defenses were surprisingly dominant, and especially here with the Lions and Eagles, it just made for quite a boring game. This was just a really poor game to actually have to sit through. Philadelphia win it with a bunch of field goals and one touchdown run in by Hurts, and otherwise quite solid defensive play. The Lions, I mean, they're supposed to be the hotshot offense, but they've had a couple of games like this. I mean, you think about the performance against the Chiefs, or you think about the Packers week one, where when the offense just does not get clicking early enough and does not get that momentum, or you have some sort of plan to deal with them, they do not seem to be able to punch back. And it really feels like this version of the Lions is a step down from last year's, albeit they're still got a ton of talent, but it just doesn't feel like in the big scenario they're really doing enough to actually win those games. The offense looks much weaker without Sam Laporta. He turns out to be quite an important part of the glue that binds the offensive plan together. They had tight end Brock Wright was in as kind of the replacement for Laporta here, and he had a really poor day. 2 catches from 7 targets for 8 yards, but what was worse was the momentum is lost. If you don't have Laporta's catches and the get out clauses, or the way to kind of those kind of short 5-6 yard kind of plays to kind of keep your drives going, things stall out very quickly, and I was very surprised by just how kind of all over the place the offense looked without just one player in it. Also, you got to start asking questions about Jared Goff. Apparently, the stats are him playing outside of a dome, and especially playing in the cold, are really terrible. And he kind of lived up to form here. 14 of 37, which is just brutal. Sub 50% completion for 255, a touchdown, interception. And if this guy cannot play outside in the cold, you do kind of have to question why he's playing in the NFC North, where he'd have to go to Lambeau Field and Soldier Field big games. Like, maybe he just needs to go back to LA and kind of sit in the sun for a while, because does seem to be quite a big weakness for a
Matt Stafford might well
be
retiring this year, and they'll need a new quarterback for the Rams. It would be a power move to be traded back.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to come back as the actually someone who's respected as a quarterback would be interesting experience in
Mm.
LA. I don't know how him and Sean McVay's relationship
I
is
don't
probably
think
not
they
the
get
best. I don't
along
think.
in any way, shape, or form. I don't
Um,
think we could see that happening. But
yeah.
yeah,
But anyway, we do see a little too many games like this from Goff. We know that Goff is talented. We know when the system works and he's in his groove, he can be the guy who makes this offense work. But he does have just too many games like this, and it does kind of cost them. It was quite weird because there were some players who were playing quite well. Gibbs had 146 all-purpose. Jameson Williams had a big game, 97 all-purpose and a touchdown. But the offensive play, especially on the big plays, was just incredibly anemic. They went 3 of 13 on third down, which is bad enough. But the really bad stat, the signature stat here, is that the Detroit Lions are a fourth down team because Dan Campbell just goes for fourth down all the time, and they really have to make it work in order for that as a thing to function. Oh, 0 of 5 fourth down attempts here, which is just really bad. It just wasn't working at all. So for Detroit, a lot of questions about this offense, and they have to solve these problems because it kind of does feel like if you again, it's a kind of situation. If you have a game plan and you can stifle the Lions, it feels they coast on their talent too much and they don't have a way to solve problems that they're coming up against. On the other side, I mean, the Eagles they're just ugly. They win so ugly. Yeah. I don't really know what to make of the Eagles. They looked really bad offensive day. Aside from Barkley, who had 90 all-purpose, their offense was just not at all there. They have an awful lot of these games as well. But the thing with the Eagles is they tend to win these ugly games, whereas the Lions tend to lose the ugly games. So maybe that's the difference between the two teams. It kind of feels like a game to forget for both teams. Kind of a mid-season. Maybe it's a playoff thing. They want to keep their powder dry or whatever. They didn't want to show off a couple of plays that they might feel that they might need in, say, an NFC Championship game or whatever, if they feel they're going to be meeting in the playoffs. But it definitely did not feel like for a big game against two good teams. It really did not feel like that at all. It felt like a very just generally boring and just very weak play, especially on the offensive side. And yeah, for the Eagles, I don't know what to take away because they play like this all the time, but they still win. For the Lions, too many of these games are happening offensively, and they need to start solving these problems pretty soon.
yeah. Like their defense worked. That's kind of the big plus we can say for it. But like that's really all that was working on this day for them. Like nothing was happening. The the big one I suppose is they got to lay down their marker on the tush push, like two back-to-back tush pushes stopped for no gain. Like that's pretty good. Force a turnover on downs right when it was needed as well. That's when it was 6-16. The problem is the offense followed up with 4 plays, -7 yards and a field goal, and then never touched the ball again. Like it was just anemic from the offensive side, which is weird because like they put up yardage, like I said, like 255 yards through the air. The run game was kept very short-handed in this one. They averaged 3.5. Their longest run was 11 yards with Gibbs, but then like the stuff through the air was working. They just were unable to close it out in short yardage, and I wonder what's behind that because this is a team that is meant to have, the big strong line and the two-headed monster in Gibbs and Montgomery in the back that you can mix it around with, and they just weren't able to get it over the line at any point. It was just very inconsistent. It tended to be like chunk play and then three and out, and then chunk play, oh, turnover on downs. Like it just wasn't quite clicking at all for them. Like two scores, like I said, the touchdown and the field goal at the end, which I kind of want to call it a cowardly field goal, and I think I am going to have to call it a cowardly field goal. Like I get what they were thinking. I get the idea that like, okay, we kick a field goal here, we make it a 7 point game. Then if we can get the ball back, our defense has been good. That's fair enough, I suppose. They're just coming off stopping the tush push, but like I think they were down to, was it, they had two timeouts left, so they would need to literally stop them, not allow any first downs. Like you were on Philadelphia's 36-yard line. Yes, it was fourth and 17, but like you're you're more likely to be able to score from there and be able to get a field goal afterwards than you are to kick the field goal and then presumably have to drive the length of the field with no timeouts in your pocket with 30 seconds left, particularly given how the offense had been playing that day. And this is not the first time we've seen Dan Campbell do this. Do you remember, was it the the NFC Championship game, I want to say 2 years ago, and then a similar criticism in the playoffs last year where like his go for it on fourth down thingy one year was causing him problems. So then the following year he had a couple of like, well, I'll settle for the field goal here, and you just kind of go, but you're a fourth down team who needs this to win, and it's highly unlikely you're going to touch the ball again. So I do think like unfettered aggression on fourth down is all fine and fun and games, but be it maybe that the like you said, the failure to convert any of the ones during the game scared him off doing it or something like that. But yeah, like I think 2 minutes left, two timeouts in your pocket, and you're on the opponent's 34, and you need to score 12 points or sorry 10 points. I think you go for it. But that's just me. I'm just a podcaster. What do I know? What do I know? I just won the Super Bowl and Retro Bowl with the Tennessee Titans, but who cares about that?
Yeah.
Three in a row, baby. 3 in a row. Well, as we say, look, all games are important. Just some games are less important. And for those, we turn to the dump-off. First up, Chicago at Minnesota, 19-17. A Devin Duvernay 56-yard kickoff return sets up the walk-off field goal for the win. Turnovers really is what decided the Chicago +2 in that pocket. Williams looked pretty mid in this one, 16-32, 193 yards and no touchdowns. They leaned on the run game. It was 16-3 in the fourth quarter, and then let Minnesota get right back into the game. JJ looked incredibly bleh in this. Very similar stat line though, 16 of 32, so also 50%, 150 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. So like both of these teams came in here with very similar game plans. They have very similar splits between their passing and running. Like JJ, they're obviously managing around Williams. They're managing around, but for a different reason. I think it's that he likes to kind of play a bit of jazz rather than play the standards that he's being told by the coach occasionally. But yeah, it was just the turnover difference that did it here. And this is an incredible streak. So the Bears' turnover streak is at the moment, in their 7 wins, they are +20 in the turnover battle. Like, that's crazy, particularly given how close a bunch of those games are. Next up, Green Bay at the Giants, 27-20. Look, they were trailing, and Love left for an evaluation after his shoulder got injured, and Green Bay felt a little bit lost. And then he came back and he was like, oh, that's all that was wrong. I just needed that piece pushed back in. He came in and threw two touchdowns and a comeback win. Like, he wasn't super impressive, but he was definitely better than he was before he left for evaluation. Wilson looked to replace Jacobs post-knee injury that we mentioned. He went 11 for 40 yards and a touchdown, so not phenomenal, but not bad for a backup coming in at that stage. And they survived 2 fumbles that they had. Now, they recovered them, so it didn't cause turnovers, but like, it was sloppy. It was sloppy from Green Bay. Winston was also sloppy in this one, 19-27 for 201 yards and an interception. But Mike Kafka, my man, he came to win a job. He goes for 4 fourth downs. He got 3 of them. Tracy looked good in this one as well, racking up some yardage, but Singletary got in there and stole the 2 touchdowns. So yeah, for the Giants, good fun. If Kafka is going to coach like this, they're actually going to be quite fun to watch for the rest of the way, even if they're probably not going to have the most competitive roster. For Green Bay, book up your socks, but at least you get the win. Washington at Miami, 13-16. I was at this one, and it was actually quite an enjoyable one to be in person. A close game that was missing its stars. But as the Americans like to believe, we love kicking in Europe, and therefore this was the perfect game for that. We had 4 field goals, 2 missed field goals, 2 touchdowns, and an overtime interception field goal to close it out. Both offenses lent massively on the run. 50% of Washington's plays were run plays, 60% of Miami's were. Some of that's going to do with their quarterbacks, and some of that's going to do with the traveling and what they think will work in it. And both running offenses found success. They were all over 5 yards per carry, but there was just not much explosiveness on either side. Like, the top wide receiver in this game was Debo, who had 74 yards. Like, there was no one was really grabbing this game by the throat and taking it. Jack Jones' interception in overtime being the big difference here. There was a Washington missed field goal with 15 seconds left, which is heartbreaking. They got down. It was a long one. I think it was about 52 yards, but they missed that. That got us overtime. Dolphins aren't dead yet, Sean. They are not dead yet. They are, they've got a couple of winnable games coming up here, so I expect them to enter the in the hunt graphic in about a week or 2. That's going to be an interesting one, particularly given where we thought they were. Dallas at Las Vegas, 33-16. 16. Utter dominance. Not much of a game here. 31-9 at the end of the third quarter. Dak had 268 yards and 4 touchdowns. They had a solid run game. Pickens went off, 9 catches for 144 yards and a touchdown. They sacked Geno 4 times and intercepted him once. The Raiders look absolutely dead in the water. They don't have a clue of what they're doing. You draft a running back in the first round for a team like this, you probably give him more than 6 carries in the entire game, right? Like, I get that, you know, you're behind, but what is your game plan here? Sending Geno out there to get murdered, and he's not looking good at the moment. The defense looks completely out at sea. Shut the program down. Fire Pete Carroll. Make Tom Brady be their coach or something like that. Just something to make them interesting.
The man needs a job. It's not like he's got enough jobs.
It's true. Like there was one play where I think it was the touchdown to Jake Ferguson, the tight end, where like no one on the Raiders defense was covering him, and you go, hold on, this is their really good tight end who they love to go to in this area for catches, and Max Crosby looked up on the play and noticed that no one was covering him and tried to get across, and just like ended up standing there with this 1,000-yard like I've just come back from war style. Oh, it was brutal. Free that man, trade him to the Chiefs. Jets, New England up next, 14-27. Went as expected. Jets got an opening touchdown, and then did absolutely nothing till the third quarter. Fields got benched. Not impressive here at all. He had 11 runs in this game and was their top rusher. Like, that's also quite worrying. May continues to shine, 25-34 for 281 and a touchdown. And the Hendersons continues. Can we call it a Hendersons? Like, it's his first year, but he started out the year bad, wasn't getting the carries. But yeah, look, he went 19 for 62 and 2 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs bizarrely gets his third over 100-yard game. You're getting the performance out of him. I imagine something to probably do with alimony for those multiple babies that are coming. This was not explosive from either team, and not explosive from New England, but very highly effective. They just clinical. I think they knew that they didn't need to put anything more into this game to win, and it was very impressive. Chargers at the Jags next, 6-35. A no punt game for the Jags. Huzzah! Their punter was getting a selfie with Trevor Lawrence after the game. Lawrence was very boring in this game, 14-22 for 152, a touchdown and an interception. But boy howdy did they take it to the run game. 47 runs called in this game, so like more than double the amount of passes. 4.1 yards carry, 4 touchdowns. Did I wonder a little bit, were the Jags going to lose another fourth quarter lead? Yeah, I did, because they have a bit of form in that, but they didn't do it and they're alright. The Chargers look completely lost. Like, they had 135 yards total in this game, 8 first downs total in this game. Herbert was 10 of 18 for 81 yards and an interception. Their defense didn't get any sacks in this game. They lost the time battle nearly 2-1. This was so bad that Trey Lance played the last 11 minutes of this game. Like, that says everything you need to know. Yeah, we'll blame it on them having to travel east to west, I suppose, and hope that they're different next week. But this was atrocious. Next up, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, 12-38. Rodgers leaves in the second quarter with a wrist injury, and Rudolph led 2 long scoring drives to win the game. The defense seemed to have figured out Flacco this time around. He only went 23 of 40 for 199 yards, a touchdown and interception. And there was a fumble return touchdown on a Noah Fant pass that kind of really turned the tide on them. As you mentioned there, Sean, in the news section, this is kind of the end of the Burrow return arc. There's no real point in bringing him back unless Pittsburgh and the Ravens start to drop a load of games. But even then, I don't know. The question is, who will lead the Steelers into December? As of recording, we don't know. They're still saying that he might play next week, but equally, he's a 42-year-old man and could well not be available for the rest of the season. If he's broken a bone at his wrist, I probably wouldn't want to be trusting him out there. But yeah, look, they get the win here anyway, keep their dreams alive for losing to the Ravens in December and handing over the crown. Houston at Tennessee, 16-13. The Houstons hit 500 for the first time this season. Despite their own best efforts, they scored no first half points. They pulled ahead in the fourth, but an 11-play, 95-yard touchdown drive, leaving 90 seconds on the clock, tied it up. But who do you call on in that spot? You call on big old Mills, and he did a huge field goal drive for them to get to the win. Collins had a big game again. Mills does numbers, like he's got big in the 275-ish yardage, I believe. But they just can't complete drives. They're just not finishing them off. They're just not getting points. They then got away from the run game. So Tennessee got away from the run game in this one, and it just confused the 14 running back calls in this. This was a tight game between two also rans. Nothing in the game script says you need to get away from the running game like that, particularly when you're actually ahead and should be using it. But hey, Tennessee, you do you. We just discussed, they lost their WR1 to an injury in this game, and they still refuse to run the ball. It's just very confusing. But Texans, they're alive. They've got a couple of big games coming up because they've got a couple of matchups against other wildcardy type teams. So very much alive at the moment. San Fran at Arizona up next, 41-22. This game confused the piss out of me, Sean. I'm struggling to work it out. Arizona, 488 yards of offense to the 281 yards of San Fran. They had committed 17 penalties for 130 yards. They had 3 turnovers in this game, and just utter confusion and scrunch. Purdy looked composed in this one, 19-26, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. They had a small CMC workload. He had 13 carries for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then he had 40 yards receiving and a touchdown. So 3 touchdowns, small workload though. I think he only touched the ball 16 times. Jacoby Brissett, this is why I'm so confused by this game. Jacoby Brissett, 47 of 57 for 452 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And like I said, there was no run game, but the game script was quite out of hand. They were chasing from early in this, which is fair. Wilson, the wide receiver, 15 catches for 185 yards. McBride, 10 catches for 110 and a touchdown. This was 38-10 in the fourth quarter. It was just, it was all over at that stage because they fumbled at that point, so they just couldn't get anywhere. But just looking at that, how does that level of offensive production equate to 22 points? I just don't understand it. And then finally, Baltimore at Cleveland, 23-16. I asked Baltimore to do something and they didn't do it. Cleveland led this game in the fourth quarter. Gabriel got concussed, so then Sanders came in. We mentioned there earlier his grand performance, actually very, very reminiscent of the Kirk Cousins performance we discussed earlier. 4 of 16 for 47 yards, an interception, and took 2 sacks. Browns only had 187 yards of total offense. They went 0 for 2 in the red zone in this one, and they still led that game. They still were leading this game with that being their stats. I asked the Baltimore Ravens to just, knock them off, give us something impressive, make us fear you. Nope. Jackson was poor in this one, 14-25, 193 yards and 2 interceptions, was sacked 5 times, 4 of which came from Garrett, who's just an absolute unit. It was a Henry game. He had 18 touches for 103 yards and a touchdown. Messy. Baltimore still have a shot at the AFC North, but they haven't impressed me still. This is still not a scary team, but they've got time to grow into it, I suppose, as long as they keep winning matches. So that is the jump off, and let's look at the games next week. Okie dokie, Sean, let's start it off on Thursday Night Football, Buffalo at Houston.
Yeah, on paper, this is an interesting game because it's 2 kind of playoff chasing teams, wild card, seeding, etc. Both these teams have mild aspirations, I suppose, to stay competitive in their division. The Texans probably aren't going to catch the Colts, but the Bills may believe they can catch the Pats. It's going to be kind of a weird game, though, because it's going to be one of those games where the 2 best units are going to be facing each other, and then the other half of the game is going to be dog shit. So obviously the Buffalo offense is playing lights out when Josh Allen is in the mood, and the Houston defense is probably the best defense in the league. So that's going to be really fascinating to watch. But on the other side, you've got a Houston offense, which I know Davis Mills has won 2 games in a row, and he's the big dog now, but it's not very good. It's very ugly to watch. They just somehow managed to clamber enough points to win against the Buffalo defense, which is just not really at the races here. But even given that, I would expect that what Allen and Cook can do on the offensive side, they should be able to get enough points that the Houston just can't keep pace. Ultimately, the Houston's offensive weakness is the thing that's going to cost them down the stretch, I think, as they're chasing a wild card spot. I just don't think they're quite at that level yet, and so I think the Bills will be comfortable enough. It'll be an interesting game to watch, but I do think the Bills will pull away as we get into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so we've gone for the Bills across the board there. I think you're with you though. Like this is the kind of one that could trip them up a little bit. So Buffalo, like, just be careful, particularly given you're the away team on Thursday night football. Into the early slate, Jets at Baltimore. We've gone for Baltimore across the board here. Again, look, like I just said, they're not a scary team, but Jesus Christ, the Jets are less scary than them. They're at home for this one. It's a gotta have it game. These are the type of ones you gotta knock in. Again, gonna ask them for the exact same thing that I did beforehand. Please just try and impress us a little bit. This should be one where you can flex on them. Please flex on them. Give us a reason to think the AFC North's going to throw up a real contender this year. Speaking of the AFC North, Sean, Pittsburgh at Chicago.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because another one of those, just like when Pittsburgh came up against the Colts a few weeks ago. It's interesting, like how good is this team? Are the Bears for real? And I don't think they are. I think, as we've been talking about before, they've won a lot of close games against bad teams. They haven't necessarily looked all that spectacular against good ones. I think that the Steelers will give them a challenge here, but we're all picking Chicago. I think largely because I would be worried about what this Pittsburgh offense can. I know Mason Rudolph was able to beat the Bengals, but I mean it's the Bengals, probably the worst defense in the league. If Aaron Rodgers isn't playing here, or if he's playing hurt, I mean if he was healthy, I would probably pick the Steelers to win this one simply because I think they're a more talented, cohesive unit than the Bears are. That despite what the Bears look like in terms of their winning streak, they're not actually all that good. But I think you put the Steelers under Rudolph against this Bears team with the momentum the Bears have and the kind of self belief and that thing, that momentum that seems to push them to win games in the fourth quarter. I think you just got to give them the edge. I think it'll be a close game, and I think we'll learn an awful lot about what the Bears are as an offensive force in particular here, coming up against a Pittsburgh defense which has had off weeks but is also has as against the Colts, when it turns up with a game plan, they can be quite a difficult defensive unit to play against. So I think we'll learn a lot about
Mm.
Caleb Williams and what he can do here. But I just feel that Pittsburgh offensively are just not going to do enough to be able to win this game.
Yeah, like we'll see. Well, I think it's like you say, pretty close to a pick 'em. I'm going Pittsburgh. You guys are going Chicago. New England at Cincinnati up next. We gone for New England across the board. Look, Cincinnati look kind of half dead in the water. It's not looking great for them at the moment. A lot of injuries. Obviously, we mentioned suspension for their top wide receiver. New England, on the other hand, looking imperious, having absolutely no issue dealing with the opponents. Like far further beyond the development spectrum that I think we were expecting for this early into the career there with Vrabel. And yeah, like I get Cincinnati kind of cornered animal game that they have to win if they want to stay relevant, but like I just don't see a route through for them. I expect New England are probably favored here by about 8 points or something. Giants at Detroit up next. Sean, we gone for Detroit across the board.
Yeah, obviously the Giants are a bad but a fun team, and I think you're right in the dump off to emphasize just how fun this team is. That they really are taking the kind of the dart scatterbow energy, even if they neither of them are playing at the moment. They're taking that energy into just their general approach to playing and making it a fun sport to watch, and it's a really enjoyable team to come up against a Detroit team that's going to be hurting from their bad performance against the Eagles. Ultimately, though, when it comes down to this as a game, the Lions have shown themselves to be a really good offense at beating bad teams. They're an expert flat track bully as an offense. They know how to destroy defenses that are not quite up to scratch. And the Giants have a decent defense at times, but there are some weaknesses there. I would expect an angry Lions team to come out here and try and put up maybe 30, 40 points on the
Mm.
Giants. And I just can't see whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's the Jameis experience again, or even if we get Dart back post concussion or whatever. I think ultimately there's just not an awful lot going on in that defensive. The Giants tend to win low scoring games in this era. They do not tend to have any chance really of holding on to a team that is capable of getting into a boat race. So I think the
Mhm.
Lions, they'll be angry. They'll want to get a lot of frustration out. I think that they'll put up a lot of points here, and I think the Giants could be a nasty game for them in terms of
Yeah.
just how ugly it could get.
I just love Mike Kafka is like he's so aware that the Giants are probably not giving me this job, so I have to just do everything I can to be interesting because he did the coaching cycles a couple of times now and wasn't able to latch on as a head coach, and yeah, he's just having fun with it and it's great to watch. Uh, We have Minnesota at Green Bay up next. We've gone for Green Bay across the board. This is, I think, more a reflection of where we think Minnesota is than where we think Green Bay is, because I think Green Bay, jury's out on them a little bit. We see highs and lows at times. We see moments of it really working, but it's just not consistent. Whereas Minnesota are coaching around their quarterback. They are doing everything to try and make it easy, and it's just not working for them. And their defense has been underperforming for the last while. I get this is a divisional game; they know each other well. These guys are going to, I expect this to be a grim game to watch. I think both defenses are going to do pretty well against each other in it, and it's going to take one or two big plays. Parsons looked a little bit better of late, so maybe that'll kind of be the difference for them. But Minnesota 17 points last week. I think it was like similar. Was it 20 the week beforehand? Neither of these teams are blowing you away. And like Green Bay against this Giants team that was, starting Jameis Winston and stuff, only putting up 27. It's just both teams are underperforming. One of them is probably going to be in the wild card. One of them has a long hard look in the mirror afterwards. We're going to go with the one who's probably going to be in the wild card, particularly also there at home. Next is my pick of the week, Indy at Kansas City. I've gone for Indianapolis, and you guys have gone for Kansas City. I've just got a bad feeling we're catching Indy coming off the bye week as well, so they're coming into the house. Now, I might flip flop this by before the game start and decide, no, this is where the comeback starts. But Chiefs defense looked better last week. That's a positive for the offense. Looked sluggish, and particularly this whole, like I said, this shotgun run system, particularly when we're on our second and third string running backs, isn't really working. Whereas Indianapolis have a good front. We've seen DeForest Buckner causing a lot of problems. We've seen decent play out of their secondary and so on. They can go through the air. They can go through the ground, which is a problem. The Chiefs are a defense that kind of likes to zone in on one or the other and force you into the thing you don't like to do. I'm not loving this matchup for the Chiefs unless we come out, we're at home, and the offense starts firing the way it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, and they can find the soft areas in the defense. And Indianapolis defense is perfect, but yeah, like it's. I would love to be a fly on the wall to see the conversations in the offensive rooms are like at the moment over there in Kansas City. Whereas Indy, they're sitting pretty. They've still got a bit of a buffer. It's not going to kill them if they lose to the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are definitely going to be further down the packing order in the hunt for the playoffs. So it's not going to be like this is going to be an important tiebreaker for them, but there'll be a nice scalp for them to be able to take and to get the narrative back onto them being the big dogs and not just flat track bullies who've dropped a few now at this point. So I expect them to be coming out rested and ready to play. I hope the Chiefs are ready, but I'm slightly worried that this offensive funk isn't going to be cleared in time.
I mean, for me, thinking about this game, to me, it's going to be really interesting to see, especially Daniel Jones coming off two kind of bad weeks, and we know he's kind of a confidence guy and a momentum guy, and he's kind of regressed to Giants era Danny Dimes in his last two displays. So I think it's going to be can the bye week get him back into a good place, especially with, I mean, I imagine KC defense Spags is going to throw some interesting stuff at their way, and we saw how stifled they got when the Steelers did similar stuff. So to me, that's the really interesting. I think if Indy and the passing game, if they can get the passing game going, and the Jones can look a little bit like he did in the early part of the season, then I absolutely give the Colts a chance to win this one. I just have a feeling he's going to be found out again, and the Colts are going to struggle offensively enough that maybe the Chiefs' offensive woes isn't going to matter all that much.
Yeah.
Would be my look at it.
No, I know. I think I'm just, moribund now, having had to just review the game against the Broncos. Next up, Sean, Seattle at Tennessee. We've gone Seattle across the board. Why would we do
Yeah,
that? Don't we trust the
yeah.
Titans?
This can't be a contest, surely. I mean, the Seahawks lost a game in an ugly way, and you'd be worried about Darland and interceptions, but they are just immensely talented on offense, immensely talented on defense. They've got some really good coaching. I have a lot of faith in the Seahawks being a really good team this year. They've shown us that they are a quality outfit. One defeat isn't going to change that. The Titans are not good under any metric at all. They're not good, and it's very difficult to see how they can be anyway competitive against a team that's got its shit together as well as
Yeah.
the Seahawks have. So I think the Seahawks have to win it. Yeah.
Yeah, the continuing Cam Ward just doesn't get a break with the defenses he's playing.
Oh,
Season continues. Into the late window, Jacksonville at Arizona. We've gone for Jacksonville across the board. Nice bounce back game from them there against the Chargers. They looked strong. They looked in control. Like I said, they didn't have to punt at all. Arizona, I've been actually kind of halfway close to picking Arizona in this one because I was just kind of going, like I said, I got so confused by their game against San Francisco. Like I said, like just shy of 500 yards of offense and it only turned into 22 points. Like at a certain point, that's just got to start turning into points, right? And this Jacksonville team is so streaky and so all over the shop, it's hard to tell. But I think I'm going to give them one more week of kind of rolling and being able to continue this onwards, and then we'll see where they go. Because this has upset, disappointment, accidental trap game written all over it. You beat the Chargers, who you're up against for a playoff spot in like really comprehensive fashion. You start to love the smell of your own farts, and then you shit the bed in Arizona.
that is classic Jacksonville, to be fair.
It is like that's the thing. Like the narrative plays in your head, doesn't it? Like you're like, oh yeah, I could totally see that happening. But no, we'll give them one more week. I think they showed themselves to be kind of a bit more clicked into the system, so we'll go with them for one more week. Next up, Cleveland at Vegas in whew,
Yeah.
real
Th-
toilet
There,
bowl.
there's something really perverse about the Browns this year because they've got a last place schedule, so they're playing lots of bad teams. They also got paired with the AFC East, so they're playing like they played both the Dolphins and the Jets. So it's like every single week it feels like the Browns are playing the worst game imaginable, and it's like, oh, the Browns against the Raiders. That's like the worst game you can possibly imagine right now. Especially the Raiders. I mean, the momentum is completely gone from the Pete Carroll thing. Geno Smith has, I bet he wishes he was back in Seattle because it's not going that well. This is kind of old Geno back. They don't seem to believe in Ashton Genty as an offensive force, which is a very strange place because whenever they've given him the ball, he's done quite well. So Vegas are a bit of a mess, and so I think this could be an ugly game. I think the Browns defense could cause a lot of problems, and I think the Raiders might struggle to score points. But then you look at the other side of the ball and you go, it's just like the Browns have like the worst offense I've ever seen. But that was when they had Joe Flacco, who's somewhat competent, and then Dylan Gabriel, who has his flashes. Shedeur Sanders, I'm sorry, I'm putting this out there. He's not good enough to play in the NFL. And I don't care how much hype you put around him. And I don't care how much it's like, oh, first game jitters. Every quarterback has first game jitters. It's very clear who can play at the NFL level and who cannot. I just don't think he's good enough. And I think this Browns offense somehow is getting even worse with him at under center. So I just, as much as the Raiders are going to struggle to score points in this game, I do think they will score some points. I think the Browns could easily post a donut here. I really do. I mean, it's like, it's weird. It's like they've got Sanders starting. They got Bailey Zappi as the backup. I'm like, give Bailey Zappi the ball. That kid, okay, he's error prone to, to maximum levels, but he will get the ball down the field and he can score touchdowns, neither of which we've seen from Shedeur Sanders yet. So I think it's going to be an ugly game, and I could definitely see a 0 next to Brown's name at the end of this game for sure.
So I think the Browns are going to do what they did beforehand, and they're going to listen to this podcast and they're going to take my advice, which is run Sanders out of the backfield with Quinshawn Judkins and Dylan Sampson both on the field at the same time, and run a double wishbone or run a triple option, and just use the legs. Like I know Sanders isn't the fastest guy in the world, but like just to get them moving around a bit, lots of 2RB stuff. And do you remember I said it to a while back when they had Gabriel out there, and I said, why are you passing it 47 times and running it 12? Invert those numbers, and they did it, and they won a damn game. So I expect to see a lot of running because there's literally one person on this Raiders defense, and if you have two running backs, he can only cover one of them. Well, he might be good enough to cover two of them actually, but yeah, like this is going to be a brutal 9-6 or something like that game, or both teams are just going to be like, yeah, why not? Let's have some fun and go crazy. But yeah, not going to be fun. Philadelphia at Dallas. We've gone for Philly across the board. Dallas have been a bit more spicy. They were good on the on Monday Night Football. That said, it was against very very poor competition. Philly have been sloppy. They're on the road traveling down to Dallas. They've not been putting up a huge amount of numbers offensively. The problem is it's Dallas. The problem is that it's Dallas and their defense is terrible. So if you want to get right game for Philly's offense, it's going to be here. Philly's defense looks to have turned a bit of a corner, so that should maybe slow down Dallas a little bit, albeit they seem to have just a phenomenal offense put together from pieces that we were not expecting to maybe gel quite as well as they did. But you're gonna have to side with Philly, who seem to just accidentally happen upon a way to win every game that they're in at the moment, and against Dallas, who do genuinely feel quite often like they're trying to find ways to lose them. But I imagine this one will be very close, and if Dallas are pumped up, I could very much see them taking it to Philly, and we get another one of those exciting 35 to 42 kind of games happening here. But yeah, gotta side with Philly, I think.
No, I
Uh,
could see it. I could see it. I could see Dallas winning. They're in that kind of form. But yeah, you got to back
yeah.
Philly to win every game, basically.
And Atlanta at New Orleans, Sean. Kirk Cousins is in.
Yeah, I've gone for Atlanta. You guys have gone for New Orleans, which is either. I mean, I know Kirk Cousins is bad, and I know the Falcons are in a bad place, but the Saints are not a good team. Like, as much as Tyler Shook has had his, like, one good game or
Yeah.
whatever, I just don't think you can back them. I think the Saints are. They're a pretty terrible outfit on both sides. They lack a lot of talent. They're doing their best, to be fair to them, but I just don't think there's an awful lot there to love. Whereas Atlanta, even with Cousins a quarterback, they've still got Bijan, still got Drake London. Kyle Pitts has his games. The defense does occasionally do some things. I think the Falcons have to win this one. I mean, it's the Falcons, so I could totally see a situation where they don't, and they've had posted a fair few stinkers in their time this season, but I just can't back the Saints to win a game like at all. Like I just can't. I just have a principled stand this season against the Saints winning any games. So I got to pick the Falcons.
Okay. Like I think New Orleans defense has been pretty okay. I think Shook they're coming off a bye, which is going to help them. Uh, they played well. Literally the last time they played, Shook was nearly 300 yards. And their defense stopped the run game of Carolina. Like they totally took out Rico Dowdle. So I actually think this would be kind of a fun game. I would love Atlanta to come out firing because I think it would be fun, but I just don't trust Cousins at all, at all, at all. It's the wrong month, so yeah. But Sunday Night Football is your pick of the week, Sean. Tampa Bay at the LA Rams. We've gone for the Rams across the board.
Yeah, I mean it's a game that looked an awful lot more enticing a week ago than it does now. The Bucks kind of exposed a little bit against the Bills. Offensively, they were fine, albeit a little bit messy, and they did find answers in the run game, which they haven't had for a while, which does kind of take the pressure off Baker a little bit. But that defense has significant weaknesses. You'd be very worried about what this defense will look like when you put Matt Stafford against them. For the Rams, I mean, it was a bad week, but you know, Stafford is in a really good form this season. This isn't a divisional opponent, so not a team's going to have a tremendous amount of data on them. I mean, Puka Nakua is in a good place. Kyron Williams is in a good place. I think the Rams are a really, really strong offensive unit. And I think the game against the Seahawks proved that the defense can be explosive, can be a dangerous force to be reckoned with. So I think there's both sides of the ball. The Rams are still a very solid unit to put your hat on. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what the Bucks can actually do if it becomes again a shootout kind of situation, and Baker's going to have to do an awful lot of things. Do they have the ability to keep that going for 4 quarters? They only managed 3 quarters of shootoutness against the Bills, so that'll be interesting to see. But I think this will answer a lot of questions about whether the Bucks genuinely are a team that can talk about contending at the top of the NFC, or if they just happen to be a team that is leading a bad division and may not even be leading a bad division at the end of this week if they lose to the Rams and the Panthers beat the 49ers. So for me, it's the Rams across the board because I just think they've got more proven quality on both sides of the ball, and the coaching is of a high standard. But I'm interested to see if the Bucks can bounce back and make it more of a contest this time, and especially on the defensive side, to show a little bit more spiciness than they did last week.
Yeah, and you've also got like Tampa Bay. You've just traveled up to Buffalo and are now going all the way across the country to the Rams. Like they're going to be tired. A lot of them are old, they won't have they won't have their orthopedic mattresses and whatnot. They just won't be feeling themselves. It's a tough ask for them to go in against this Rams team. But they do have the dogs to do it if they can come in with the right mindset and be able to pull it off. We've seen strong offenses cause problems for this Rams team, and we've seen this Tampa Bay team put up scores at different points this season. But yeah, it's just on the current form and where I feel that the defense in particular for Tampa Bay is at the moment, it's hard to look past the Rams. But yeah, Monday Night Football, Carolina, San Francisco. This is a far more fun game than I would have guessed it would be like 6 weeks ago. San Francisco seem to be back in form. Brock Brady's playing well for them. They've got Kittle back. They've got, they're not at full strength, but they're definitely at more strength than they were beforehand. And we saw them put up 40 points there in the weekend, and that's fun. And Carolina on the other side, like we talked about in the reviews, just had the coming out game for their young quarterback. Their offense is firing well. Their defense did a good job. Like I probably don't think Carolina are going to be in contention to win this one. San Francisco at home with a lot of their guys back and the confidence they have and the coaching advantage that they should have. But their defense is lacking a few pieces, and Carolina could get the ball moving against them. The threat of Rico Dowdle makes them a more dynamic and exciting offense. I got just kind of like I like this for Monday Night Football. This would have, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I would have said, "Ugh, they're just kind of clearing out the trash here." It's like, no, this should be a fun one, and we should get a good idea of, was it a 1 week bump or is it something more sustainable for Young as well?
Yeah, it should be fun. You don't always get fun Monday Night Football, so it's
Oh,
always
we
good to
haven't
have
for a
one.
while, I think. Well, like it's been a lot of like shitty pieces of bread on the football sandwich of Sunday, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, but yeah, very good. And I'm closing in on the locks now. I made back 3 or 4 picks last week, so that's
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's not bad.
All credit. You're back in the game for sure.
Yeah,
Only
and now
just
I've got to
behind,
back
late behind.
Cleveland. um, but yeah, no, it should be good fun. So, any plans for the weekend or anything like that?
Well, we have a bunch of family coming over for a baby shower because somebody is pregnant, and I won't say who. And so we're going to. There'll be a lot of activities, I'm sure.
Mm.
I believe I am taking my brother-in-law to watch football to get us out of having to do some of those activities. But
Very good.
yeah, no.
Soccer ball or
Soccer ball, yes, yes,
very good.
yes.
Very good. Uh, very fun. Yeah, I think we've got a fairly quiet one planned here on our end. So I think we've got a dog coming over to visit for a few hours who a friend of ours is minding, and kind of wants to just have someone for the dog to hang out with. And I'm going to see if the weather gets in anyway a little bit nicer. I might try and get out to hit some golf balls at some point. But it's gotten real cold here, Sean. It got down to I had to clear ice off the car this morning. It was
Yeah, yeah. We our car. This is the first winter with this car, and we finally got our first black ice warning that the car actually gave us, which is kind of cool.
very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. These fancy new cars, I'm telling you, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
drive themselves basically at this stage.
I know. I'm still kind of just like, oh wow, yeah. Why didn't I get an automatic beforehand? This is quite handy, particularly in the city for touring around. But I still like to turn off a lot of the safety features, but that's just because I like to live on the edge. Uh,
No, my wife is the same. She hates the safety features telling her what to do,
yeah, it's
so
really
she
annoying.
turns them all off.
But yeah, nothing else too wild or crazy here. It's been a busy little while, so I'm just kind of flat out with a few bits at work. So we'll get that all wrapped up and get facing into the Christmas time adventures. And yeah, it should be good fun. Well, that wraps up for this week, I suppose. So it's bye from myself. It's bye from Sean.
Bye.
This has been all 4 quarters. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat to you next week.